Ladies and gentlemen, friends and dreamers, I stand before you today not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has learned to embrace the beauty and complexity of life despite the chaos, despite the storms. You see, we live in a world that moves at a pace so fast that sometimes we forget to pause, to breathe, to truly look around us. We are taught from a very young age to seek validation, to build our circles, to surround ourselves with people. But I ask you this, have you ever stopped to wonder why we place such emphasis on companionship, on numbers, on the approval of others? What if I told you that sometimes the loudest voices are the ones that come from within? What if I told you that at times the most powerful friendships you can have are not with the people around you, but with the person you see in the mirror? We live in a society where our worth is measured by our connections. We are told that the more friends we have, the better we are. But let me challenge that narrative. What if having no friends is not a reflection of your failure, but rather a sign of your strength? What if, just maybe, it is a sign that you have learned to stand alone, to trust in yourself, to be content in your own company? You see, it's not the number of people in your life that defines you. It's the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. In silence, in solitude, you have the chance to meet the most important person you. What if, instead of seeking friendships to fill an empty space, we chose to fill that space with self-love, with healing, with growth? You don't need to be surrounded by hundreds of people to know your worth. You are enough. Even on the days when you feel like you are standing alone. Even when the world doesn't understand your journey. I know the pain of loneliness. I know the ache that comes with being misunderstood, with being isolated in a crowd. But I also know that it is in those moments of stillness, when the world is quiet and the noise fades away, that we find our true power. It's in those moments that we begin to hear the whispers of our own heart, urging us to rise, to shine, to trust that we are enough just as we are. So my friends, I urge you, don't be afraid of the empty spaces. Don't fear being alone. It is in those spaces that you will find your truth. It is in solitude that you will discover your strength, your courage, your reach, your resilience. You don't need 1,000 friends to prove your worth. You only need one, the person you see when you look into your own eyes. So here's to standing tall, to walking your path with conviction, to finding peace in your own soul. Because when you learn to love yourself, the world begins to open up in ways you never imagined. We live in a world where the emphasis on numbers often overshadows the depth of true connections. From a young age, we are taught to build relationships, accumulate friends, and surround ourselves with people who affirm our existence. Social media further amplifies this message, creating an environment where the more connections we have, the more we are valued. We're given the illusion that our worth is tied to how many people like us, how many followers we have, or how large our social circle is. But in reality, our value is not measured by numbers. There's an inherent pressure to belong, to be part of a group, to be accepted. This pressure can be exhausting, especially when we feel like we don't fit in or can't live up to society's expectations. We may start to believe that being alone or having a small circle is a failure, something to be ashamed of. We start questioning our own worth based on the absence of validation from others. Yet, what if I told you that the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself? What if the number of friends or connections you have doesn't matter at all in determining your value? We live in an era of comparison, where the loudest voices come from external sources. We measure ourselves against others, trying to match up to their standards, trying to fit into their boxes. It's easy to feel small when you're constantly comparing your life to someone else's. However, true worth doesn't come from being liked by everyone. It doesn't come from fitting into a mold that society has designed for you. True worth is inherent. It comes from understanding and accepting who you are, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says. Imagine a life where you no longer measure your worth by the approval of others. Imagine a life where you can sit in solitude, free from the need for external validation, and still feel whole. The concept of being enough, just as you are, without needing anyone's affirmation, is incredibly powerful. The number of people who surround you, the number of friends you have, should not determine your happiness or your self-esteem. It's not about having a large group of people who claim to be your friends, but about having a few meaningful relationships where trust, respect, and mutual growth flourish. And sometimes the most important relationship is the one you cultivate with yourself. self-worth is not something that can be earned by external factors. It doesn't come from the number of likes you get on a post or how many people comment on your photos. It comes from deep within. It's about recognizing your own strengths, acknowledging your own achievements, and being kind to yourself when you stumble. True self-worth is not about perfection, but about acceptance, accepting yourself in all your glory and all your flaws. When you begin to accept yourself, you begin to see that your value is not tied to the approval of others. It's tied to your inherent qualities, your talents, your kindness, your resilience, and your courage. In a world that often measures success by popularity or social standing, it's easy to forget that we are more than the sum of our connections. It's easy to get caught up in the need to belong, to be recognized, to have others validate us. But what happens when we strip away the noise, when we stop chasing the approval of others and start listening to our own inner voice? What happens when we start acknowledging that we are enough exactly as we are, without needing anyone to tell us so? There's a certain freedom that comes with this realization. It's the freedom to stop pretending, to stop being someone you're not just to fit in. It's the freedom to be authentic, to show up as your true self without fear of judgment. This doesn't mean that you should isolate yourself from the world or avoid building connections with others, but it does mean that you should not define your value based on the number of people around you. Instead, define your value based on the love you give yourself and the acceptance you have for who you are, regardless of external factors. The idea of self-worth beyond numbers is not a new concept. Throughout history, many have sought to understand and embrace the importance of knowing one's own value. It has been said that the greatest relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. For how can you truly connect with others if you don't first understand and love who you are? How can you offer love, kindness, and support to others if you can't offer those things to yourself? Yet, we continue to live in a world where we are encouraged to measure our worth by how much attention we get from others. We are bombarded with the idea that popularity equals value, and if we don't have a large circle of friends, we are somehow lacking. This is a dangerous mindset. It's a mindset that can lead to feelings of inadequacy, loneliness, and self-doubt. But we must learn to challenge these beliefs. We must learn to see that being alone does not mean being unworthy. Sometimes being alone is exactly what we need in order to grow, to reflect, and to understand ourselves better. The journey to understanding self-worth is not always easy. It requires us to let go of societal expectations, to silence the voices that tell us we're not enough, and to embrace the truth that we are whole, just as we are. This can be a painful process, especially when we've spent years seeking validation from others. But once we begin to truly understand our worth, we can stop chasing after the approval of others and start living a life that is aligned with our own values and desires. In this journey, it's important to recognize that your value does not decrease based on the number of friends you have or the recognition you receive. Your value is inherent. It is not something that can be earned or lost. It's a part of who you are, woven into the very fabric of your being. The number of people around you does not define your worth. It's the depth of the connection you have with yourself and the love and acceptance you offer yourself that matter the most. As you begin to shift your focus from external validation to internal acceptance, you may find that the pressure to conform begins to fade. You may realize that you no longer need to chase after popularity or measure your worth by the size of your social circle. You may find peace in solitude, knowing that you are enough with or without the approval of others. And this is where true freedom lies, in the realization that your worth is not defined by the number of people who call you a friend, but by the way you treat yourself, the way you embrace your uniqueness, and the way you accept yourself fully without reservation. As we navigate through life, it's crucial to remember that self-worth is not tied to external factors. It's an internal knowing, a quiet understanding that you are worthy, regardless of how many people are in your life. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. And once you truly understand this, the number of friends you have will no longer matter. What will matter is the peace you find within, the joy you create from within, and the strength you build from the love you give yourself. Loneliness is often perceived as a negative experience, something to be avoided at all costs. We view it as a condition that must be fixed, as if being alone automatically equates to feeling incomplete or unworthy. This is the narrative we've been taught, that to be truly fulfilled, we must constantly be in the company of others, surrounded by friends, family, or acquaintances. Yet I challenge this conventional thinking. What if loneliness wasn't something to be feared? What if, instead, it could be a powerful teacher showing us lessons about ourselves that we would otherwise miss? At its core, loneliness is not about being alone physically. It's about a feeling of disconnection, a sense that something is missing. We experience it not when we are by ourselves, but when we feel isolated from others, when we feel like we don't belong or that our presence isn't valued. But here's the paradox: sometimes it is only in those moments of solitude that we can truly connect with ourselves. Loneliness often serves as a mirror, reflecting the parts of ourselves that we may have neglected, the emotions we may have suppressed, or the aspects of our lives that need attention. Instead of seeing loneliness as a painful void, we should consider it as an invitation to turn inward. When we feel alone, it's an opportunity to reflect, to understand why we feel this way, and to address the underlying causes. Loneliness can be the space where we can discover what is missing in our lives, whether it's a deeper sense of purpose, meaningful relationships, or personal fulfillment. It can be a wake-up call, reminding us that we need to nurture our inner world just as much as we nurture the relationships around us. Loneliness can also force us to confront the truths about ourselves that we might otherwise avoid. When we are surrounded by others, we often hide behind distractions, filling the silence with noise, conversation, or social media. But in moments of solitude, we cannot run from ourselves. We are left with our thoughts, our emotions, and our deepest fears. It is in these moments that we are given the chance to grow, to evolve, and to heal. We might feel uncomfortable or uneasy at first, but this discomfort can lead to profound self-discovery. It is through loneliness that we often find the strength to confront our own vulnerabilities and insecurities. The key to navigating loneliness is not to shy away from it, but to embrace it. The fear of being alone often stems from a lack of self-acceptance. We fear that if we are alone, we are somehow inadequate, that our worth is diminished without the validation of others. But in reality, loneliness can be an opportunity for self-love. It is a time to learn how to enjoy our own company, to find contentment and peace within ourselves. The more we accept ourselves in our moments of loneliness, the less dependent we become on external sources for our happiness. We begin to realize that we are enough, that our worth does not hinge on the presence or approval of others. Loneliness also teaches us the importance of boundaries and self-care. In a world where we are constantly asked to give to others, we may forget to give to ourselves. We may overextend ourselves in relationships, work, or obligations, neglecting our own needs in the process. Loneliness provides us with the space to pause and take stock of our own well-being. It allows us to recharge, to reconnect with our passions, and to cultivate the things that bring us joy. It is a reminder that we are allowed to prioritize ourselves, to take the time we need to heal, and to nurture our own spirit. Without this space, we may burn out or lose touch with our true selves. It's also important to recognize that loneliness doesn't have to last forever. Just because we feel lonely in one moment doesn't mean we will feel this way forever. Emotions are temporary, and they ebb and flow like the tides. What loneliness can offer, however, is the chance to take a step back and reassess what we need in our lives. Perhaps we need to make new connections, invest more time in existing relationships, or redefine the type of connections we want to have. Loneliness is not permanent, but the clarity it brings can lead to lasting changes. In the midst of loneliness, we often have a tendency to compare ourselves to others. We look at the seemingly perfect lives of those around us and wonder why we don't have the same level of connection or social interaction. This comparison can exacerbate our feelings of isolation, making us feel even more disconnected from the world. But we must remember that everyone experiences loneliness in different ways. No one is immune to it, no matter how many friends or followers they may have. The difference lies in how we respond to loneliness. We can choose to let it overwhelm us, or we can choose to use it as an opportunity for growth. Loneliness also gives us the chance to deepen our connection with the world around us. When we are alone, we have the time to appreciate the beauty in simple things: the quiet of the morning, the warmth of the sun, the sound of birds chirping, the rustle of leaves in the wind. It's in these moments of solitude that we often experience a deeper sense of gratitude for life itself. We learn to appreciate the present moment, to slow down, and to savor the small pleasures that we might otherwise overlook in the rush of daily life. By embracing loneliness, we can create a more balanced and fulfilled life. Instead of running from it, we can learn to use it as a tool for self-reflection and growth. We can come to understand that being alone does not equate to being unloved or unworthy. In fact, loneliness can deepen our understanding of ourselves and our needs. It gives us the opportunity to rediscover what brings us joy and fulfillment. It teaches us to appreciate our own company and to trust that, even in our moments of solitude, we are complete. And from this place of self-acceptance, we can move forward with a greater sense of clarity, peace, and purpose. The world we live in is constantly shifting, and with every change, there is a pressure to adapt and conform. We are told that success lies in outward appearances, in the number of friends we have, the amount of recognition we receive, or the constant validation from those around us. We are led to believe that being surrounded by a large group of people, maintaining a constant social presence, and accumulating followers are the keys to happiness and fulfillment. But in truth, the pursuit of popularity often leaves us feeling more isolated than ever. The quest to fit in can be overwhelming, and in many ways it may even cloud our ability to truly understand who we are. We live in a culture where we are encouraged to prioritize external achievements over internal growth, to focus on socializing and connecting with others at the expense of cultivating our own sense of self. We are so concerned with the approval of others that we begin to lose sight of our own values, desires, and identity. As a result, we find ourselves in a state of perpetual confusion, constantly trying to meet the expectations of others while neglecting what is most important to us. There is a powerful truth that often goes unnoticed. True fulfillment comes not from the number of people around us, but from the quality of our relationship with ourselves. We are often so busy seeking validation from others that we forget to validate our own worth. In moments of solitude, we can discover who we are without the influence of others. We have the space to reflect, to ask ourselves the tough questions, and to become comfortable in our own company. This journey of self-discovery may not always be easy, but it is necessary for creating a sense of peace and contentment that comes from within. Being alone does not have to mean being lonely. In fact, some of the most profound personal growth comes from learning how to be with oneself without relying on external validation. When we are alone, we are given the opportunity to face our fears, our insecurities, and our past. We are no longer distracted by the noise of the world or the pressure to conform. It is in these moments of solitude that we often come face to face with the truth of who we are, and it is through this confrontation that we begin to understand what we need to heal, grow, and become the person we are meant to be. Solitude can be transformative because it offers us the freedom to be our authentic selves without the need for approval or recognition from others. In our solitude, we can reconnect with our passions, our dreams, and our desires. We can explore the parts of ourselves that may have been neglected. And we can focus on building the life that feels right for us, without being constrained by the expectations of the outside world. Solitude allows us to deepen our understanding of who we are, and it gives us the space to make decisions based on what truly aligns with our values and aspirations. One of the greatest gifts of solitude is that it teaches us self-reliance. In a world that constantly encourages dependence on others for happiness and validation, learning to stand on our own can be incredibly empowering. When we learn to enjoy our own company, we realize that we do not need anyone else to define our worth. We are enough just as we are. This shift in perspective allows us to create healthier, more fulfilling relationships with others because we no longer enter them from a place of need or desperation. We enter relationships as complete individuals ready to share our love, respect, and understanding rather than seeking to fill a void. It is important to recognize that the journey to self-acceptance often involves periods of discomfort. At first, the silence and solitude may feel overwhelming, as it forces us to confront aspects of ourselves we may have long ignored. But it is only through this discomfort that we begin to peel away the layers of doubt and fear that have built up over time. These layers are often the result of living for others' expectations, and in removing them, we are able to uncover the true essence of who we are. When we stop seeking approval from the outside world and begin to trust our own instincts and decisions, we open ourselves to the possibility of deeper, more meaningful connections. We are no longer bound by the need to fit in or conform to societal norms. Instead, we embrace our unique identity and celebrate what makes us different. This authenticity attracts the right people into our lives, people who resonate with our values and who appreciate us for who we truly are. Furthermore, embracing solitude can also enhance our ability to connect with others. By becoming comfortable in our own presence, we become more present and available for others. We are no longer distracted by our own insecurities or the pressure to impress. We are able to show up in relationships as our true selves, free from the masks we once wore. This authenticity fosters trust, understanding, and mutual respect, creating a foundation for meaningful connections that go beyond superficial interactions. In moments of solitude, we have the chance to reflect on our values, our passions, and our purpose. We are able to disconnect from the distractions of the world and tune into what truly matters. This self-reflection is essential for growth, as it helps us make intentional choices that align with our deepest desires and aspirations. It also allows us to identify what no longer serves us, enabling us to release negative patterns, relationships, or behaviors that hinder our progress. Learning to be comfortable in solitude is not about avoiding people or isolating ourselves from the world. It is about creating a healthy balance between connection and self-reliance. It is about recognizing that we are not defined by the number of friends or followers we have, but by the strength of our relationship with ourselves. When we learn to trust ourselves and embrace our individuality, we open the door to more meaningful experiences, both with others and with ourselves. Solitude becomes a powerful tool for growth, self-discovery, and empowerment, leading us to a place of inner peace and contentment that cannot be found in the validation of others. In a world that constantly demands more from us, solitude has become a foreign concept, something we are afraid of. We're taught to fear being alone, to view it as a weakness or something to be avoided at all costs. Our lives are busy, there's always something to do, somewhere to go, someone to talk to. We fill our schedules with obligations, and yet, in the midst of this rush, many of us find ourselves feeling empty, disconnected, and lost. We crave connection, but not just any connection. We crave true connection. And sometimes to find that, we must first find peace in solitude. There is a power in being alone that many of us overlook. It's in the quiet moments when everything slows down that we often find the most clarity. We may be afraid of solitude because it forces us to confront ourselves, to sit with our thoughts, our fears and our insecurities. It is in these moments of stillness that we are challenged to look inward, to reflect on who we really are and what we truly need. It is in these moments of solitude that we discover who we are beyond the noise and distractions of the world. Solitude, when embraced fully, can be a teacher. It can be a space for healing, growth, and self-discovery. We often think of solitude as a form of punishment, something we need to escape from. But what if we began to view it differently? What if we allowed ourselves to be in our own company, to sit with our emotions, to be vulnerable with ourselves? In that vulnerability, we find our true strength. The moments we spend alone can be the most transformative. Without the influence of others, we are able to hear our own voice, understand our own desires, and make decisions based on what is truly best for us. Solitude provides a space to reconnect with our passions, our dreams, and our purpose. It's in the quiet that we can hear the whispers of our hearts, guiding us towards the direction we are meant to take. But being alone isn't always easy. It can feel uncomfortable at first. There's something unsettling about being left alone with our thoughts, with the chaos that sometimes swirls in our minds. But instead of running from it, we must learn to sit with it, to breathe through it. We must learn that it's okay to be uncomfortable in solitude. It's okay to feel lost, confused, or even afraid. These are the moments where growth happens. It is in the discomfort that we learn to stretch beyond our limits, to discover parts of ourselves that we never knew existed. We often seek distractions in an attempt to avoid facing ourselves. We turn to social media, to other people, to anything that will take our attention away from the present moment. But all of these distractions only pull us further away from what we need to face. When we embrace solitude, we stop running from our own thoughts and begin to confront them. It is through this confrontation that we grow. We learn what we need to let go of and what we need to hold on to. We become more in tune with our emotions, our desires, and our truths. The quiet allows us to peel away the layers of doubt and fear that have been built up over the years. Solitude also allows us to understand the difference between loneliness and being alone. Loneliness is the feeling of being disconnected, of yearning for something outside of ourselves to fill a void. It is rooted in the belief that we are not enough on our own. But when we learn to embrace solitude, we begin to realize that we are whole. We no longer feel the need to fill the space with distractions or other people. Instead, we sit with ourselves, and in doing so, we find contentment. Being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. In fact, some of the most fulfilling moments come from learning to be at peace in our own company. There is also an immense power in choosing solitude. In a world that encourages constant engagement, where the fear of missing out drives us to stay connected all the time, choosing to be alone can be an act of rebellion. It's a declaration that we value our own company and that we are not afraid to explore who we are beyond the external noise. This choice can be incredibly empowering. It's a reminder that we don't need anyone else to define our worth or our happiness. We are capable of creating our own sense of fulfillment. And as we learn to be comfortable with solitude, we also begin to appreciate the beauty in the present moment. We become more mindful, more aware of the world around us. Solitude allows us to connect with nature, with our surroundings, and with the small joys that we often overlook in the hustle of everyday life. We learn to savor the stillness, to find peace in the simple things. It is in these moments of quiet reflection that we realize just how much we have to be grateful for. Solitude also gives us the opportunity to heal. In the busyness of life, we often overlook our own emotional wounds. We push them aside, thinking that if we just keep moving, we'll be fine. But solitude forces us to slow down, to check in with ourselves, and to tend to those wounds. It is in these quiet moments that we allow ourselves to heal, to forgive, and to grow stronger. We learn that healing isn't always a fast process, but a gentle one. It takes time and it takes patience. But the more we embrace solitude, the more we give ourselves the space to heal. Solitude is not just about being alone, it's about learning to be fully present with ourselves. It's about giving ourselves permission to be still, to listen to our thoughts, and to discover what we truly need. It's about understanding that we are never truly alone, because we are always with ourselves. And in that company, we find everything we need to thrive. In a world that is constantly telling us to do more, be more, and achieve more, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We are conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to the number of people we know, the size of our social circle, and how popular we are. It's as if the value of our existence can be measured by how many friends we have, how many followers we gain, or how many people acknowledge our presence. But this notion is deeply flawed. The truth is that true connection has nothing to do with the number of people in your life and everything to do with the quality of the relationships you cultivate. It's not about how many people surround you, it's about the depth of the connection you share with those who truly matter. We live in an era where superficial connections are abundant. With the rise of social media, it has become easier than ever to amass a large number of friends, followers, or acquaintances. But these connections are often shallow, fleeting, and lacking in substance. They are driven by the desire for validation, the need to be seen, and the fear of being left behind. But we must ask ourselves, what value does a relationship hold if it is not built on trust, mutual respect, and genuine understanding? True companionship is rooted in authenticity. It's about being real with one another, accepting each other's flaws and imperfections, and offering support in times of need. It's not about being surrounded by a crowd, but about having one or two people who truly see you for who you are and who value you for your uniqueness. It's about forming bonds that are not based on convenience or superficial traits, but on shared values, experiences, and a deep understanding of one another. In today's society, we often mistake quantity for quality. We believe that the more friends we have, the more valuable we are. But this is not the case. The truth is that meaningful friendships are not measured by numbers, they are measured by the quality of the interactions you have with those around you. A single person who truly understands you, who supports you in your struggles, and who celebrates your victories is worth far more than 100 people who simply know your name. It's about finding people who bring out the best in you, who challenge you to grow, and who help you become the best version of yourself. We have to recognize that not every relationship is meant to be a lifelong connection. There will be people who come and go in our lives, and that's okay. Some people are meant to be a part of our journey for only a short while others are meant to stay with us for the long haul. The key is to focus on the relationships that truly matter, the ones that are built on trust, respect, and a shared sense of purpose. These are the relationships that nourish us, that help us grow, and that offer us the support and love we need to navigate the challenges of life. At times, we can find ourselves yearning for more friends, for more people to fill the space in our lives. We might feel lonely or isolated, thinking that we need a larger social circle to feel validated or accepted. But this feeling of emptiness often comes from a deeper place, a place where we have not yet learned to be content with ourselves. When we begin to understand that we do not need the approval or attention of others to feel worthy, we free ourselves from the need to constantly seek out new relationships. Instead, we focus on nurturing the meaningful connections we already have and learning to be content and in our own company. We must also recognize that the quality of a relationship is not just about what we receive from others, but what we give. A true friendship is a two-way street built on mutual respect, empathy, and understanding. It's not about what we can take from others, but about what we can offer in return. This means being present, being supportive, and offering our love and kindness without expecting anything in return. When we approach relationships with this mindset, we create bonds that are deep, meaningful, and lasting. Building quality relationships requires effort, patience, and vulnerability. It's about being willing to open up to others, to share your true self, and to listen with an open heart. It's about being there for someone when they need you the most, even when it's not convenient or easy. And it's about recognizing that no relationship is perfect, but that the effort to nurture and grow those connections is what makes them valuable. True friendships are not about having the perfect person in your life, but about finding someone who accepts you as you are and who supports you through life's ups and downs. As we navigate through life, we may find ourselves in situations where we feel disconnected, where we struggle to find those deep, meaningful connections. But this is a natural part of life. Not every season of life will be filled with a large circle of friends. Sometimes we will go through periods of solitude, and that's okay. These moments can be opportunities for reflection, self-discovery, and growth. It is in these quieter moments that we often realize that we are enough just as we are, and that we do not need the approval or validation of others to feel worthy. At the end of the day, it's not about the number of friends you have or the size of your social circle. It's about the depth of the relationships you cultivate and the genuine connections you make with those around you. True friendship is not a matter of quantity, it's a matter of quality. It's about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, who encourage you to be the best version of yourself, and who support you unconditionally. When we focus on the quality of our relationships rather than the quantity, we find that we are surrounded by the people who truly matter, and that is what makes all the difference.